Okay, we're live. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 209, which we're going to call CPU fail, and Tom's going to explain that to us because there is a huge fail. I think today is a whole bunch of fails today. We're going to just jump right in. Well, first, let's say hi to Tom.
Hey, everybody.
So Tom's there. I'm Hyam. We'll just start off with we have a WhatsApp group. You can come talk to us. We're going to talk about WhatsApp, just not this second. But first, if you have a Google security key, it's we put a link in the show notes. You need to get it replaced. And I mean, we're going to get into it, but do it now. Take the 5 seconds, go in there, figure it out, and we'll explain. So in the last few episodes, we talked about YubiKey and U2F and FIDO and everything. And we're still trying to get the people on. But like we told you, it's going to be a while. But what happened was, so we recommended the Google Titan security key. It's a $50 dongle. It's Bluetooth enabled, and the weakest link Bluetooth has a problem. And the problem is really, really stupid. Basically, the Bluetooth beacon can be intercepted if you're within 30 feet, and you can basically man in the middle of the Bluetooth beacon and get the code.
Yep. So we did recommend this. It was theoretically vetted by Google. It was pushed by them. They were pushing people towards Titan security keys, and it was just built wrong. So if you have a Titan security key, go grab it.
We're waiting.
Cool. Yeah. Now that you have your key in your hand, obviously, go ahead and turn it over. So where you can see Titan, you can see the serial number on the back, and look at the very bottom. You'll either see a T1 or a T2. If your key has a T1, you need to go ahead and get a replacement key. So you can head over to google.com/replacemykey. It's all lowercase, all together, no spaces, no hyphens, google.com/replacemykey. They will ship you out a free, 100% free paid shipping replacement security key that does not have this boneheaded vulnerability.
It's T1 or T2 at the bottom.
Oh, and my bad. I misread that.
It's
T1 or T2.
Okay, and you have to unpair it. Again, this is a boneheaded vulnerability. This should have been Q quality control 1 and 2. I mean, you're within Bluetooth range. You have to make sure no one can sniff that, because that's a big deal. Now, they also need to know your username and password. But again, it's one of those proximity things that could be an issue. And again, if this is still better than what's it called? The 6-digit PIN.
Yep.
The TOTP. This is still better than SMS. This is still better without anything. So this is still better. So it's not like all of a sudden all your world secrets are gone. Somebody has to be within 30 feet of you. They have to pair in that process, and they have to do it. It's just one of those things, like, I think this is security 101 type thing that you should have realized.
Yeah, it's an error like this is really unfortunate. But they are replacing it. They're doing it right. They're not charging anything for replacements. They're not making you jump through a whole bunch of hoops. They're just going to give you a new key without the vulnerability. So they're doing everything correctly as far as I'm concerned. But you're exactly right. Don't unpair this and throw it away right away. Right? It's still useful. Just try not to use the Bluetooth mode if you're in a public place. It does have to be a very targeted attack. Someone within 30 feet of you has to know your Google username, they have to know your Google password, and they have to be trying to man in the middle your Bluetooth LE connection to your security key. Like, that is a really targeted attack. If somebody hates your guts that much to hack you, you should probably be watching your back anyway. But it doesn't change the fact that you still should probably get a replacement key. It's not a good vulnerability to have laying around, but don't unpair this until you get the new device. This is still the best defense against remote hijacking of your Google account. So it does still have value. It's just kind of embarrassing, honestly.
It's one of the knocks, actually, between. So again, both Tom and I want U2F keys, whether it be Yubico or Google. And we talked about in the past that these are the two big players. And one of the knocks was, hey, this Titan key was made in China. And not that that's a problem exactly, but it's one of those, okay, it's made in China, which give people some pause. And here's like another stupid thing. Like you should have figured that out. Now, that's not to say that Yubico hasn't had a problem. We were talking about this before the show. Many years ago, they said, hey, we'll replace it. There's a PGP vulnerability. But basically, there was a PGP vulnerability where the mathematical concept to get the code was weakened, not broken, weakened. So it wasn't as cryptographically strong with less entropy. But that's a really, really hard problem to spoof. Like, you're not recreating that exactly like this, like sitting in a coffee shop. This is some really hard crypto that you're trying to break, and YubiKey immediately just you said it and they sent you a new one.
Yeah, so both Yubico and Google are doing the proper things here. Now, the man in the middle, the technical complexity from this article, it doesn't look very complex, which is the issue. So if somebody does have your username, your password, and they're sitting next to you in a coffee shop, they could definitely man in the middle your U2F key over Bluetooth, and that's kind of a bad deal.
So again, if you have one of these, go to the show notes. But what did you say it was? It was
google.com/replace my key. All lowercase, no spaces, no dashes. Google.com/replace my key.
And if you click on it, it knows what security keys, because you're logged in, that you have, and it will immediately I have none, so it says, hey, you got nothing. But I'm sure if you have the right one, it will give you a heads up, hey, this is how to do it. And hopefully they ship them out next day, and you should be back up and running hopefully the next day.
Yeah. So we'll keep you apprised of any further developments, but I know Google is going to be paying a pretty close attention to the security keys and the vulnerabilities from here on out.
So, okay, what do you want to talk? You want to talk about CPU fail, or you want to talk about the WhatsApp bug?
Let's talk about WhatsApp, because the CPU fail we're going to have to dig into. And guess what? This is a teaser for those of you in the industry. If you've got Intel, sorry, preaching to the choir here. That's me too.
So, all right. So WhatsApp, the other day, somebody found it was leaked that the NSO group, that's basically a nation state actor. It's the Israeli cybersecurity force. It is a private group. It's run by private citizens, but if you know a little bit about them, it's a little more public than private, probably. But they found a way to send a maliciously crafted buffer overflow into WhatsApp phone calls. So you get a phone call, you don't have to answer it. You just, even if I think you reject it, it still is able to create a buffer overflow, cause WhatsApp to crash. Then they're able to jailbreak or root your phone and do whatever they want. That is a really, really, I want to say, nasty bug that you probably can't figure out, but that's a problem. So WhatsApp initially got it. They figured it out. Update WhatsApp and you should be good to go.
Yeah, just make sure to keep installing updates. Don't run weird versions of software. If you have, for whatever reason, installed a WhatsApp APK from somewhere that's not the Play Store on your Android phone, go out to as official sources you can find. Check the WhatsApp website. I don't know if they offer APKs, but if they do, pull it directly from the source if you don't have access to the Play Store. Just get updated in any way you see fit. Because this is remotely exploitable, remote code execution attack, and it's a bad one. So this was actually used to target a specific lawyer. There's a lot of drama around who the NSO group is, who they target, who they sell exploits to, and who they use those exploits against. It's kind of out of scope for this show, but just know that the NSO group in general doesn't make, teeny tiny little annoying security bugs, right? When they drop something, it's usually something pretty massive and pretty impactful. The good news for everyone out there is the stuff they also drop is generally useful to people targeting a specific person, not necessarily targeting everyone or the general populace. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Keep your updates going.
Look, I'm not the general conspiracy theorist, but this is one of those things that I don't think a security research found out. I feel like they were done with whatever they wanted, and they didn't want anyone else to know about this. They wanted WhatsApp fixed because they use it. So they basically they probably found out, this is the conspiracy theory, that it was using for a nefarious purpose, and they have other tools. So they probably released the exploit to somebody to write it up, and then WhatsApp fixed it. Again, that's a conspiracy theory, but I do believe that in some respect.
So let's go into what they do if they jailbreak your phone, right? If you get a WhatsApp call from this group, and again, you don't have to answer the call. Just the fact that your phone receives the call, that WhatsApp gets a call, is enough to trigger the remote code execution and buffer overflow attack. They can do everything from turn on cameras, turn on microphones, go through your messages. They literally have complete root access to the device. Do you use the face unlock? Well, guess what? They could just be looking at your face the whole time. They can hijack any camera on the device, any microphone, GPS, you name it, they've got it. They have full root access to your device and everything contained within. Do you think your Signal messages are safe? Well, no, not really, because they can also exfiltrate those off the phone. It's a really, really nasty vulnerability. Luckily, all you have to do, keep WhatsApp up to date.
And well, I mean, we say that now. You said before, find APKs from somewhere else. If you're on Android, and we talked about this, and you're using the Google Play Store, Google Play should be the only app store that you have, unless you have like a Fire tablet or something and you have to use Amazon. But the Play Store, they're actually doing some good things. So one of the things last week in Android Q that we heard from the keynote was the Play Store is now going to update at least the security portions of your phone. They couldn't get the manufacturers to update, so they're taking the security part of the Play Store and doing it with them. So if you can stick to the Google Play Store, you should be getting your updates. You should be getting at least some sort of like simple virus scan inside the Play Store, and Google tries to take care of you. So again, update WhatsApp. If
for whatever reason you're not on the Play Store, only download WhatsApp from whatsapp.com. I'm looking at it right now. You can go to whatsapp.com/Android and download an APK right on the site. So please use Google Play, but if you don't have that ability for whatever reason, get it from the official whatsapp.com site.
And again, so I'm sure we're going to get these messages as soon as the podcast airs. Is WhatsApp safe? The short answer is still yes. The long answer is still yes. WhatsApp, at this moment, at least, is, again, end-to-end encrypted inside the conversations. Facebook can absolutely see your name, your profile, the title, the people in the group, their profiles, their everything. But the messages are encrypted. So just make it a funny title, throw some pictures of cats in there, and they won't be able to see anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't name the group chat something like World Domination Plan. Right? Because people can see that. That's public information. And if you're concerned about people knowing like what time or time zone you all live in, maybe don't chat during normal hours, because the metadata still exists and is plain text, right? Facebook knows who is talking to who at what times. I don't know what's said, but honestly, the metadata is more important anyway.
So again, we use WhatsApp for our group for different reasons, mainly because everyone has it. We're not, I mean, as much as we care about security here, the chat is just security stories, and we want to make it an easy barrier to entry. So we want to talk the talk, but we want to be reasonable and convenient. And we have in the past tried Signal groups, and they just haven't worked as well. The other thing is WhatsApp has that really spiffy mobile desktop thing where you scan the QR code and it loads it up there, and you can be anywhere with the big keyboard, because most of us obviously use this at work.
It's really nice. I do like it.
So now the next question is Signal affected? Because remember, the encryption is Signal, and we have not heard anything. And I'm sure if it was, it would have been updated immediately.
Yeah, so we don't know enough to say that Signal is or is not affected by this bug, but honestly, Open Whisper Systems is super, super transparent about anything and everything security related with their platform. If they did have an issue, they would tell us about it.
So, and every time Signal does update, I always go through the update to make sure that it's not like a security thing or anything like that. So, again, update it. And then we always talk about the weaknesses with WhatsApp and Signal is that they do use phone numbers, whereas the others do not. But again, it's to tell people to move off to other systems, and everything else is challenging. So we stick with WhatsApp. We're listening. We're if Signal is compelling enough, we'll go there. But for right now, we're on WhatsApp.
Yep.
Okay, so it's what is it? It's CPU vulnerability Tuesday. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I guess. So if you remember way back in the day, I said that Spectre and Meltdown are probably the security bugs that will have the widest reach and widest impact, greater than anything we've ever seen. And I think for the most part, that's true. Now, actual impact from these bugs, no, not necessarily. But as far as patching and industry effort to clean this stuff up, and performance impacts from the microcode updates Intel has put out, like Meltdown and Spectre are still pretty huge news, especially if you're trying to, get actual hardline numbers on, will my Intel processor perform like this? Well, it would have, but thanks to the Meltdown and Spectre vulnerability mitigations, now you're getting, a smaller amount of performance than you paid for. Sorry about that, but we're trying to keep you safe. It's still very much in play in conversations that I have with industry people today about, running workloads on Intel. But now there's more, and these are worse. So we've got a large collection of Intel specific vulnerabilities. You can find all these at https://cpu.fail. And by the way, .fail is a domain. Isn't that great? That's fantastic. So you can go to cpu.fail to get a nice rundown on all of these. So we've got some big ones here. Zombie load could resurrect your private browsing history and other sensitive data. I'm reading right off the site just for full transparency. It allows to leak information from other applications, the operating system, virtual machines in the cloud, and trusted execution environments. So even if you have something like a TPM chip, a secure enclave, or another secure storage medium, those do have to exist in processor buffers at some time. So that data does have to traverse the processor. Zombie load can remove that data. So the secure enclave will not save you. We also have Riddle. Riddle attack allows to leak information across various security domains from different buffers, such as line fill, blah, blah, blah. There's a bunch of technical stuff. Basically, you can leak a bunch of data out of processor buffers through a side channel attack. It's not super, super fast, but it's way faster than getting something through Spectre or Meltdown. Now, just to be clear, these bugs were found last year. These bugs were found in 2018, but Intel and the rest of the industry, well, Intel mostly, put a stranglehold on these researchers and said, please, you cannot let anyone know until we make sure we've got mitigations in place, until OS vendors are ready, until cloud providers are ready. We have to make sure that the important people in the tech industry have patched and have prepared for this vulnerability before you publish research. It actually kind of caused a problem. These researchers couldn't collaborate because they were essentially under, not necessarily NDA, but they were under embargo to not talk to each other about this issue. So they couldn't collaborate, and they couldn't even know each other's names until days before this embargo lifted. The third big one, and the Riddle attacks, there's I want to say 3 to 5 different attacks within that. The next one is the Fallout vulnerability. It allows to read data that the operating system recently wrote and to figure out memory position of the operating system. So, ASLR, address space layout randomization. Basically, what it does is when your computer boots, it shuffles important parts of the operating system around RAM so that somebody can't hyper focus and target one specific place in RAM to launch an attack from or to launch an attack at. basically a mitigation to prevent. I'm trying to figure out an easy way to explain this, but it basically tries to prevent attackers from using jumping off points within the operating system's RAM to launch bigger and better attacks. Fallout completely destroys address space layout randomization. Just ruins it. Just gets rid of it. It's no longer a thing. We don't really care because we know where everything is anyway. Because these issues are they're not timing attacks for the most part. They're not super side channel. It's actually pulling stuff through buffers, through other means. There is a timing attack element to this, but it's way easier to pull off than anything Spectre or Meltdown were capable of. And in the speaking about Fallout, some of the mitigations that Intel put into their very latest and very greatest chipset actually make these attacks easier to pull off. It's just been a bad couple years for Intel, and it's a bad time to own an Intel processor. And I can go on a limb and say, and this is a person who literally bought an Intel processor 7 days ago, so right before this dropped. If you have the option between buying an AMD processor and an Intel one, just go AMD at this point. I'm sure that they have vulnerabilities too. I'm sure they're not being looked at as closely as Intel is right now. But honestly, the performance impact of these patches, and people are estimating around 8 to 9% impact. In some cases, depending on your workload. But when it gets down to it, you're not really losing out that much by buying AMD versus Intel. When you add up all of the patches and microcode updates that's going to take to make your Intel processor safe, and the negative performance impact that those patches will have, you're basically at AMD's playing field already.
Well, I mean, you have the problem of Intel has not created their 10 nanometer chips yet for the phones. Intel's falling behind the ARM chips. So Intel has a lot of work to go, but yes, on the desktop and on the laptop market, they're killing it. But AMD is not that much slower. And for most people, unless you know exactly what you're doing, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't. And honestly, you're saving a bunch of money by going to AMD anyway. I will fully admit, when I built my new gaming PC and put an Intel chip in, I made mistakes. I did. I now regret it. There, I said it. I regret my decision. I should have built an AMD gaming PC.
But with people talking about either Spectre or Meltdown, and maybe this doesn't really, I mean, Spectre and Meltdown didn't really affect the end user that much. Because, yes, it's speculative execution, but we haven't found any in the wild type hacks, at least yet.
Right.
Because it's like real. I mean, you and I, we both have an Intel chip desktop in front of us. Does this really affect us? The CPU fail? I mean,
so yes and no. Yes, it will affect us because our processors, as of 2 weeks ago, they were faster 2 weeks ago than they are today because of the patches we're about to get. Our computers are being actively slowed down because Intel built a chip that has hardware security vulnerabilities in it. And the only way to mitigate that is to do things that are non-performant. These patches do make the processor safe to use, but in doing so, it actually slows down the execution pretty significantly. So yeah, it is going to affect you. Your computer, 10% isn't going to be super noticeable unless you're really paying attention to it. But the fact of the matter is, this processor, before Spectre and Meltdown, before CPU fail, it was faster because of the software that we now have to apply to it to make it safe to run. One of the big things, and some of these attacks do have videos. Like I want to say it's the Riddle attacks. They've got fantastic videos that you can just click and watch. One of them's like 40 seconds long. I think it's the Riddle attacks anyway. It might be one of the other ones. But you can, yeah, it is the Riddle attacks. You can literally watch someone execute a Riddle attack from JavaScript and read out the contents of RAM. Read out something that's hit your processor buffers, which means any website you go to is potentially capable of carrying out one of these CPU fail attacks. That is super dangerous. At least in the case of Spectre and Meltdown, it was hard to do, and browser vendors did their best to try to limit the amount of damage somebody could do with that. With this, it's really hard. Chrome OS has gone so far as to completely disable Intel hyperthreading. Just 100% shut it off. On Chrome OS platforms, there is no more hyperthreading. Those systems are getting a lot slower because of that. That is a problem. Intel sold us a chip and it's insecure. And because of that, now we're going to have slower machines tomorrow than we do today.
I mean, our computers are so fast at this point, we're not necessarily changing it. But the last thing you want to know is my computer is slower than it was yesterday because we had to install something to stop a security issue.
Yeah. This really is, it's not the worst case scenario, right? This is not going to burn down the world tomorrow, but it's bad. And if you're Intel today, it's really bad. I'm right now, my next PC that I build, certainly not going to be Intel. Certainly, unless something massively changes. Next time, I'm buying AMD.
And again, the other problem is that now most people are not on the 2 or 3 year update computer cycle. They're probably more on the 5 or 6 years because their phone is taking priority, which are mostly AMD chips. Their computer is whatever it is. Their work computer is whatever it is. But the replacement cycles of those are so much longer that Intel's losing out on this business that I hope AMD comes in and starts trying to take. AMD, maybe they can do something with ARM to say we make the same like processor families on processor, on laptop, their mobile thing, and then their mobile phones and all this other stuff, that they're all the same, whatever. But I'm hoping. So
yeah. So this probably isn't going to affect the vast majority of people on mobile platforms, whereas where you could potentially see bigger hits to performance, since phone processors are pretty. I mean, they're crazy fast for what they are. I mean, you've got a supercomputer in your pocket, basically. But you would notice performance impacts more on your phone than you would on like a desktop platform. Less overhead, heat tolerance, stuff like that. Because the vast majority of phones are not using Intel. There are a few Android phones which are using an Intel chip, but those should be covered through Android security updates. That said, is your Intel-powered Android phone still getting security updates? I don't know. Probably not. But
so I was going to say that the other thing is, and this is what 4 years of college taught me, Android is not a complete instruction set. It's a reduced instruction set, which is basically all ARMs.
So ARM would be a reduced instruction set, but some Android phones do run full Intel x86 processors in them. Not very many, but there are a few cases of Intel processors with full Intel instruction sets in them.
Well, the idea was, okay, so that's the problem with Intel. They had to keep the full and complete instruction set because for them, it's like, oh, we'll just make it smaller and more powerful instead of being efficient with what they had and removing it. And I feel like now it's coming back to bite them. If they reduced a lot of the instruction set, do you think it would have been a little more mitigated or existed at all?
I don't think so. So Intel's main issue is it's kind of twofold. On one hand, speculative execution in itself is not a bad thing. ARM processors, AMD processors, the vast majority of modern processors are using speculative execution. The issue with Intel is they built it in a sloppy way. They built it in a sloppy way that allows side channel attacks, that leaks stuff out to buffers. And that's what we're seeing here is literally the result of sloppy hardware design. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the vast majority of processors are using speculative execution in one form or another. Without it, processors wouldn't have gotten anywhere near as fast as quickly. So that in and of itself is not the issue. The instruction set's not really the issue. It's honestly just sloppy design work. It's a lack of testing. I mean, so for every chip designer in Intel, and let's give credit where credit is due. Intel has made magic happen with their chipsets, right? There's a reason that they are the top dog when it comes to desktop and server processing power. They do incredible work. Unfortunately, it looks like they didn't hire enough security people to try to bash on their own platform before they sold it. And that's the issue. They didn't do enough internal red teaming. They didn't do enough, security testing. Whatever the case may be, this stuff has gotten out. And honestly, it might not even be anyone's fault. Security, the vulnerabilities don't necessarily have to have somebody at fault. It could just be something that happened. It just wasn't caught. They did all the right things, and it's unfortunate, but it happened. We don't know the real story because, we're not inside Intel right now, right? We weren't in the boardrooms. But what we do know is that these attacks are going to keep happening. We're going to keep finding more inventive ways to attack processors. And frankly, these sort of vulnerabilities are a long time coming. We've done a whole lot of hacking around software stacks, around operating systems, but actually attacking hardware is something I can't call it new because people have been doing it for since hardware existed. But the security industry as a whole, it's been a relatively small piece of black hat hacking. It's been a relatively small piece of white hat hacking. And now that it's coming into the spotlight, I think we're going to see more and more of this stuff crop up.
Well, hopefully we can maybe stop as much as we can. But anyway, we are out of time. So let's say bye. And I don't think we're going to record next week. We're going to just tell you now that it's probably going to be 2 weeks from now that you'll see another show. So we'll see you in a bit. Again, WhatsApp group, we're there 24 hours. Well, I don't want to say 24 hours a day, but we're there a lot. So
quite a bit.
To message us, tweet at us, and we'll get you in. So anyway, we'll see everyone in about 2 weeks. Have a good night.
See you, everyone.
Bye.